Hello and welcome to the Threads of Wisdom podcast. I want to give you a short intro so you know why we're here. As a catalyst and executive coach for Christian women in leadership, I've been studying Christian women in leadership for the past 21 years. And there are three gaps I see that I believe this podcast will fill. Number one, Christian women leaders and women who work are not mentored. Number two, they are not affirmed in their calling or their work or the position that they're in. And number three, the wisdom of Christian women in leadership is not being passed down to the next generations and current generations. And so that's what this podcast seeks to do. What you'll get from this podcast is a little different than other podcasts. You will hear the real stories of Christian women in leadership, mostly in the marketplace. Number two, you'll get real wisdom and advice on how to integrate faith at work and how they do it and what they do. And I hope that that's beneficial to you. The last thing is, at the end of each episode, we're going to challenge you to take one or two pieces of what you heard, wisdom, and actively apply it in your leadership, in your management, in your work. So that's it. I hope you'll dive in with us. God bless the work of your hands. Hello and welcome to the Threads of Wisdom podcast. We're really excited today to have Shannon Keil, and she is the Chief Experience Officer of the Regency in the Tampa area, actually in Riverview, Florida, isn't it?
Yeah, the Regent is in Riverview, Florida. We're sort of on the edge of Brandon, Riverview, but Hillsborough County.
Okay. Well, listen, we're so glad to have you with us. You've got a lot of wisdom and experience to share, and want to start out asking about yourself and your business. Tell us about that.
Well, let me start with the Regent. The Regent was built about 15 years ago by the county, state, and federal government. We meet many needs for the Hillsborough County area. We do a lot of the nonprofits, school events, and stuff. We're 10,000 square foot ballroom, so we can hold like 1,400 standing, and we have
Wow.
our own parking lot, which is different here in Hillsborough County because usually you have to fight for parking. So it's really, really cool to be able to have that as one of our selling points. But we do about 187 events a year. We're a FEMA resource center, so when a storm happens, FEMA is usually here. Sometimes as a shelter, but most of the time as a resource center. So afterwards, you bring your paperwork and they help you get funds and food and different things like that that you need. So it was built for the community. I call it a community event center because it's not really just an event center. It's not just really a building. It literally, we house the Brandon Riverview Chamber downstairs. We house part of Hillsborough College. They just changed from HCC to HC, so we're getting used to saying that. But Hillsborough College has part of their campus downstairs, so they do classes. So we do a lot of things community sort of connected in multiple ways here in the facility. And as far as I am, you said, and myself, so I'm Shannon Keil. I am a 25 plus year events and hospitality executive leader. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. So this is my first time the past 7 years in a facility straight, you know, just sitting in a facility. Usually I'm all over the world doing large events for like 3,500 plus people. So this has sort of been interesting, different, and I've learned a lot.
Wow, that's a mouthful. So you are so heavily integrated into your community. And so I thought we'd start there and, tell us about community and leadership and what those two have to do with each other, and just speak to us about that.
Philosophy has two sort of levels to it. One, if someone sits next to me and starts talking to me about all the money they make, I just look at them and wait for them to tell me about the impact that they make. Because
Mm,
yeah, we want to be successful in business. We want to be a great leader out there. We want to have great teams. We want to be able to do a lot of amazing things in our business. But if we're not using that to make an impact on our community, then I think we're at a loss. Because at the end of the day, if we want legacy, it needs legs. And the only way to get legs is being connected to your community and making an impact on those around you. And that is, for me, the best way to be able to do that and be seen by that. You can do a lot of things, but if you do a lot of things for others, I think that makes the bigger impact because it's not longer a ripple, it's a wave, it's a tidal wave.
mm,
And
mm.
so, and the second part of that is like a good leader should always understand that they reflect the light that they carry. out to others. And so for me, to be a true leader in my community is whatever I'm taking in is not for me to keep. It's not a storehouse. David didn't make a storehouse for, to keep that stuff
Right.
there and say, look at all the stuff I have.
Right.
He had it for the moment that others needed it. And so our job is to be a storehouse and to reflect the light that God shines on us and reflect, everything and give back everything that he's given us is for the good of others.
So the assets are flowing through the community. You're not holding on to
Yes.
anything. Fantastic. What's your leadership style or philosophy?
I'm an intentional servant leader, legacy leader. It's sort of this mixture. And the
Uh-huh.
more I read, the more that books that I'm like part of that. I'm part of that. But honestly, um, I treat my employees in my organization, as Richard Branson says, take care of your employees in a way that everybody wants them, train them in a way that everybody wants them, but treat them in a way that they never want to leave. And it's for me, my staff is more client facing, so whatever I pour into them pours into our clients. And
Mm.
so we're always looking at how they reflect my light to everybody else around us. And so I believe in that servant. There's nothing in this building that I won't do. I mean, the maintenance guy have done many gross jobs together. I will stand shoulder to shoulder with him. So I believe in servant leadership because that's if you see me doing something and I ask you to do it, you can't tell me no because guess what? I was just doing it. And so I believe that we have to do that. We have, as leaders, we have to show our staff that we know what the job is. We know how hard it can be at times. We know what those interactions are. And so we serve right beside. I'm shoulder to shoulder, but the nice way to put it, I say crap rolls uphill here. The pyramid like this, but everything that happens, you're allowed to make mistakes, and I will stand in front of you. We make a mistake a few times, then we start looking for the training possibility there. How do I make that better? And how do I teach you to not do that again? But I will take the bullets. You have the freedom to make a mistake because you're learning. And so I have to create that environment for my staff here and for others. And I have a lot, like yesterday, I got 4 phone calls from community leaders saying, Shannon, I need some advice. Tell me what you think. What is this? So because I do that with my staff and because I do that with others, it's now made me a resource in my community and that
Mm.
servant, that intentional, and I'm very intentional about that. And so that servant legacy leadership role for me is very important because I become a resource, not just to my staff and my family and those around me, but to the greater community.
So you are duplicating, which is very biblical, not imitating. There's a difference, right?
Yeah. Multiplication. It's what we're supposed to be doing.
That's exactly right. Who or what most influenced your leadership over the years?
I am just a mixed bag of, just God has been so good to me. When I first started in my career, my dad was an executive, and I got to sit in the house with amazing ministers and, business leaders. I got to hear those conversations. And, so him giving me those rooms to sit in was, really sort of what stirred a lot in me. But as my careers went on, I mean, I worked for the senior vice president of Universal Studios Development and Creative,
Mm.
and so I've got to be, he was Steven Spielberg's right hand,
Mm.
so I got to, be in those kind of rooms, the creative rooms. And then I worked when I worked for a Young Presidents Organization, I'm
Mm.
literally in the room with like names that just don't want to name drop, but crazy people. You're just sitting there like, but you get to hear who they really are, their
Right.
fears, their trepidation on business deals, all these different things, and you're just sitting there, and it's really really crazy, but yet so cool to be able to take from that. But John Paul Jackson was one that I worked for a while. He was the dream guy on Daystar Television. I did his tours. I was his set designer, so I'd go and get all these really cool pieces and build his sets and stuff for the show. But he taught me a lot about character and
Mm.
about, you know, what you think is what you become, and how you treat others is how people remember you. And I could just sit here and just books and books and books of just philosophy that he gave me as a leader that made so much sense. And then I had another boss, Mark Forward at Young Presidents Organization when I worked for them, that he taught me a lot about me I'm one of those that say sorry all the time. It's just something that's come from my childhood. And he used to teach me about my value and worth. He'd make me give him $1 every time I say it. And then he's like, I'm gonna go and have a drink with, this person. I'm taking your self-worth with me. I'm gonna buy, I don't even know if he'll buy a drink, you know? And
I
so,
love
but
that.
he'd say these things and everyone, and it would hit, because I'm an emotional person and, because but it mattered, and I mattered to him enough for him to make sure he said it correctly, not so harmful and hurtful, but in a way that molded me and made me have transition and thought about myself. And so those are really great leaders. And when they shine their light on you, you get to reflect that down the road. And here I am.
Wow. Great mentorship happening. Love it. So important. What's been most challenging for you over the years in being a leader?
Um, I think from early childhood, I'm the oldest kid. I was always almost like a parent in my household. So it's always been something I was. I think as we get into larger companies, especially in the nonprofit realm, learning how to deal with boards and not, being confident about a decision and then having those conversations and hearing other sort of aspects of thought on those things, different perspectives and stuff, and being able to mold those and create balance together and be able to move forward. So it's trusting yourself enough to fight for the things that you really believe in, but also being open enough to hear other sides and other perspectives and being able to transition and change those things. And it being a leader doesn't mean you're always the one that's right. Being a leader is the one that's always in the right place to hear all the sides so you can move forward in the best way. And so, that's one of those things I feel like I've learned, over because I've just done. I'm very impulsive and I just do. And so being able to understand that some people aren't holding you back, they're holding you down so you don't float up in the air. And so God has given me some great anchors, I call them, in my life to be able to do that. But me
Mhm.
learning how to let them be an anchor and not thinking that they're there to harm me is, something I've had to learn.
Yeah, wonderful. Tell us about your faith at work and what does that look like? How do you integrate it? What's it look like?
It's funny because when I first got here, the existing staff had went on Facebook and different things and tried to figure out who I was before I got in here. And I'd worked for a couple ministries before I came into this position. And they're like, "Oh, you're a Bible lady. You're coming in here. We don't all, we're not all that." And so I had to transition and not just be so open, not open with my faith. That's not it. I decided to do it more quietly when I first got here and sort of just treat them as Jesus would, and just out of action, show my faith and show who I was, my integrity, my character, and and all those kind of things. Versus, I'm not, let's have Bible study in the morning because as a community center, I have to be very open and very welcoming to many cultures and many
Mhm.
different things in our
Mhm.
community because I can't be pigeonholed and say only
Right.
this or
Right.
I don't believe in that, so you can't be here. So I have to live in a way that I lead not faith quietly, but my belief system quietly, but also loving people in a way that they know who I am. And so I feel like I've done that really well. And I will say that people have driven by this building and said God brought them here and I was good that I would pray for them. Would I do that? And there is anointing oil in my office and it's happened many times.
Mm. Mm-mm. That is so beautiful. So it's about modeling and being accessible,
Yeah.
it sounds
Because you
like.
can have hard conversations even with people who don't believe the same in that place and they feel safe. So I call this a safe harbor for everyone. And the reason that is because I built my foundation on a rock.
Amen. What have you done to develop your leadership? Have you done anything intentionally, like join a CEO roundtable or hire a coach or anything really proactive to develop?
Done a little bit of all of those. In this particular position, they don't have that development budget in that way where I can pay a coach or whatnot in this position. But luckily, God has sent me some amazing women who are professional coaches and stuff, and I'm able to sit down with them. And I have my certification in coaching and stuff, so it's allowed me to be able to have conversations, and we just sort of sit and where two or more are gathered in His name. Iron sharpening iron. So
Sure.
he's given me those opportunities, but I'm a member of a lot of different groups and stuff. I'm a member of Women in Leadership of Tampa and some different association groups, different, just a lot of different groups, and sit on boards and stuff. And the great thing about sitting on boards is not just because you're guiding an organization, but you get a lot of really other cool people at the table that you get to be able to be mentored and be able to have conversations, best practices, and all of those things. So it's been a really good thing for me.
I think that being in a group, in an organization, on a board, in a round table is the best kept secret for women in leadership and Christian working women. And I'm surprised at how few will enter into that process, because it's a submission process, isn't it? I mean, it's being teachable. It's being
And
able to.
vulnerable.
Right. And I would say probably 95% of the Christian women leaders I meet are not. They have nobody. They all have friends. I talk to them like, that is not the same. That is not the same at all, right? Because the other people are speaking the truth to you, or speaking the truth in love. And sometimes the people around us are speaking what they think we want to hear. And that doesn't help to sharpen us.
No, and I think there's a fear. So that vulnerability thing, because I've learned to be vulnerable, because that was one of the things that was hard for me. I was the oldest daughter of a family that my dad's biggest regret is he never had a son, and I'm the oldest, and I'm trying to be tough, and I'm trying to be,
Mm,
all these things. So my femininity is like, I can't be too feminine. I can't be emotional. I can't be all these things. And a lot of women are taught that, especially in business, your emotions need to be packed away in a suitcase. You can't carry that with you. And you're taught, that imposter syndrome is a thing. Like, you don't believe you belong in that room. Like, oh, look at all these women who did it, and I'm just sort of standing in this room and standing in the corner. My favorite thing in all these groups, like we have some different networking groups, is to go to the events and find the one standing in the corner looking like they don't, like they are trying to figure out how to jump into double dutch. And I just
mm-hmm.
and I come over and I pull them over and I said, have you met? And all of a sudden you get to pull her gems out, because she's got gold inside of her, and you'd have to show her sometimes. And once again, it's that reflection. Help her reflect her own light back to her, so she understands who she is. So the next time she walks in, she's got a couple of familiar faces, but she's also got connection, because she understands that she's got some like-minded things that are in her life that she can share, and that actually she's a resource in that room too. Because once you learn that God doesn't take you to a room that he doesn't have a place for you in, then you start walking into rooms differently. You start walking into rooms like looking for the assignment, looking for the thing I'm supposed to be here
Yes.
to do. Who am I
Yes.
supposed to talk to? It changes why you're there. If you know your why, or if you're looking for your why, then all of a sudden you find it and you find your place in that room.
So good. So it's all about what can I give when I go to an event versus what can I take or what can I get out of it. What do most people get wrong about leading, especially as a
They think
Christian woman?
leaders in general think when they get to that level that they've got to another level. They think that put them in a different almost status. Um, when I walk into the room, I'm the bottom of the rung until I figure out my place in the room and what my purpose is in there. At times I walk in a room to serve. At times I walk into a room to lead. Sometimes I'm there to inspire. Sometimes I'm there to motivate. Um, we have to walk into every room being willing to be any rung on the ladder. We
Mm,
we have to be very careful not walking in. I've walked into rooms and people act like like, this room is not big enough for me, and I'm just like, no,
mm,
you're in the room where all these women that you can put your hand and give a hand up to. These are women who want to get where you're at. So you have to see that as an opportunity, and not look at who I am in this room.
So, Shannon, what would you like other Christian working women or Christian women leaders to know?
That every room that you walk in, there's a purpose there. We get so bogged down with who we are and our identity and imposter syndrome, all those things, like we don't belong and fit in that room. But if we walked in that room and we truly believe that God has purpose in our life and that every step is destined, then every room we step in is part of that. And so it may not be you're the big leader in the room, or that piece, but I've sat next to someone in a room that I was just there to really observe, and had some of the most profound conversations and made
Mm,
some of the best connections, and just be willing to write that blank check wherever, whenever, however, whatever, and just show up. And when you get there, just wait for him to move everything into place for why you're there.
Ah, beautiful. What would you like to have known at the beginning of your career?
Man, not to just, I mean, I'm one of those, I guess it's that type A personality, but if things don't go just right, or if I don't feel like that I know everything that I need to know, I would just say don't sweat it, because it's going to happen no matter what. And whatever's supposed to be or how it's supposed to be is going to, we think we have so much control and power. And the truth is we really, really don't. And it's really cool to be able to now be, I think, a little bit more settled when I walk into a room, or when
Mm.
things are happening or in situations, because I know I'm not in control and I actually feel good about that.
Yeah, gives you a lot of peace.
Mhm.
Yeah. What's your best advice for the next generation of Christian women leaders?
My best advice is to take every opportunity. We wait till we're qualified, and as they say, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And so, it's okay to like, just like I said a while ago, it's okay to step in a room and not be fully ready. It's just step in the room. We have to be willing to step in the room. We have to be willing to move forward and let our heart guide us, because sometimes we don't know why we're there, but we know we were supposed to be there. And the great thing is, if you can really, really submit to him and to
Mm.
that, some of the best things in your life are going to happen and unfold.
You know, that S word is one that I don't think a lot of people really cherish. And I've had a lesson lately about submitting to my church authority. And I have to tell you that it took 63 years for me to do it. But now that I've done it, I have seen fruit in every area of my life. And I wish I had, I wish I had known that about 20 something years ago. But anyway, when I became born again. Thank you, Shannon, for sharing your advice, your wisdom, and your knowledge. Is there anything that you would like to share and offer regarding your products or services?
Well, obviously, being the being the CEO of the Regent, I want to first say, go to the regentfl.com and check out, the facility. And if you've got a meeting that you want to have, we have a 10,000 square foot ballroom, and it's beautiful. It's amazing if you're having a
Mm.
wedding or a business thing or a fundraising gala for a charity or nonprofit. And we here work really hard to make sure the community feels safe in our space and that they feel like they can use our space. We gave 250,000 back in sponsorship, community outreach dollars, and through program funds and stuff last year to our community.
Wow.
And so, if you need a space and you have a nonprofit, please call us and let us help you work that out. Also, I love speaking in front of women and just leaders in general, and doing all that. So you can reach out as well if you have something and you need a speaker or an MC. I would love to do that and love to be part of whatever you've got going on. So just, you let us know and we'll be there.
Fantastic. So, listeners, this is your turn. We challenge you to take one piece of advice, something that you heard, a piece of knowledge and wisdom, and implement it in your work or leadership or management this week, and let us know what happened. May God bless the work of your hands. Until next time.